Maybe try using DeQuinder, John R., or Woodward as good alternates around these delays. You're going to find construction working with single-lane closures along the Southfield Freeway in both directions at Michigan Avenue, and so you may find slight delays there. I'm Pete Spivak, WJR, traffic and weather first.
Summer says goodbye on Tuesday, but temperatures continue to increase as we head into the upcoming weekend. Tonight going to be the coldest of the forecast going forward. 40s everywhere as we wake up on Tuesday morning. But with dry air and plenty of sunshine, we're going to 75 in the afternoon. You may notice some hazier skies with some wildfire smoke kind of drifting overhead. But otherwise, still bright 78 on Wednesday with partly cloudy skies. We'll stay in the upper 70s through Friday and hit 80 with a chance of rain Saturday. I'm Local 4 meteorologist Ben Bailey.
It's time for Lions Review. Presented by MGM Grand Detroit. Believe in your game. Now here's the voice of the Detroit Lions, Dan Miller.
Hey, what's up? Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It is another edition of Lions Review, week number 2 now in the books. You heard it right here on Lions Radio. Lions fell to the Packers 42-21. We're going to talk about it tonight a little bit later. You're going to hear from Lions head coach Matt Patricia. You'll hear from Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford. And you will also hear from the one, the only Mike O'Hara, who is with us tonight, as always. Longtime beat writer for the Detroit Lions, now working with DetroitLions.com. Michael, good evening to you.
Good evening, Dan. How are you?
I am doing okay. That was a rough one yesterday. Again.
It really was. You know, I've been covering that series forever with the Packers. And that, I'm not saying it's the most dismal I've seen, but boy, it was disappointing. Got out to a nice start, touchdown, 2 75-yard drives, and then did nothing on offense or defense.
Yeah, and I guess that goes to a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight. It's, this team can and has in 2 weeks looked good in spurts, but it is sustaining that, and it is finding a way to get that to go from series to series so that you don't look up and all of a sudden you're 2 scores down. I mean, let's start with the offense. Mike, they come out with balance. They come out moving the ball down the field, score in the first 2 possessions, and we'll talk to Matthew Stafford about this. And then there's 6 straight possessions where they don't score. There's a missed field goal in there, but 6 straight possessions where they come up empty.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you start talking about these things that we hear over and over. You've got to start fast to win. They start fast, they don't win. Same a couple of weeks ago, game 1 against the Bears. They kicked field goals in the red zone instead of getting touchdowns, and they get a 21-point lead. There is no formula for winning in the National Football League. To me, the formula is playing 60 minutes of good football now. You're not going to do everything right for 60 minutes, but you've got to be engaged in the game. And I think there are periods of the game where I don't think it's intentional, but it's almost like they're disengaged. There's no fire there. There's no enthusiasm for playing the game.
Okay, to your point, let's examine the 2 teams yesterday. The Packers don't get off to a good start. They look up, they're down 14-3 in a blink. What's the difference between what we saw from Green Bay and what we saw from Detroit in your mind, where one team handled adversity, came back, and won it going away, and the other one just, for lack of a better way of putting it, kind of just went away?
That's a good point, and I don't have the answer, but I know what I was looking at, and you had a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he played his best game by any means. I don't think he played great. 60% completion rate. But he just took command of the game at that time and started distributing the ball around. And they made plays on offense. They made plays on defense. Now, they didn't get big turnovers or anything like that. But look, when it was time to change the game, they came out in the third quarter, the first play of the second half, 75-yard touchdown. To me, right, that game over. Because you could just see the Lions just gave up that entire interior there. And Aaron Jones was gone. They're on their way to 250 yards rushing, something like that. I just didn't see the passion for the game.
But when you looked at it, there was still a point where the Lions were only down by 13, right. and they certainly had a chance to come back, but they couldn't come up with any defensive stops. I mean, you have to at least have one phase of your game that is playing well. You need to either have an offense that's scoring and you can keep up in a shootout, or a defense that is keeping you in the game. I mean, if you go back to 2014, which was, I think, probably the best Lions team that I've covered, probably one of the ones that was built the best. I mean, I've been here since 97. So, yeah, I think it was. So you look at it and you say, they weren't very prolific offensively. That was the first year under Joe Lombardi, and he didn't last for a second year. But defensively, they were so good, they kept him in games. This team hasn't been able to do that.
Right. If you want to talk about one side of the game that really played well, I think it's Jack Fox, the punter. 53 yards.
And I agree with you, but that's somewhat troubling.
It is, right. When your punter's your best player. You know, that team, I think it had balance. When you're talking about the 2014, it was Jim Caldwell's first year as coach, and he really changed. He really did. You hear this all the time. Changed the culture. He changed the culture of that team, and he changed the culture of that building, and it was reflected in the way they played. I mean, look, they made comebacks. They made big stops. They acted a place. They were a genuine playoff team. When they got and lost to Dallas and controversial calls and all that. It's hard to find that, but they really, like you said before, they had one side of the ball that they could rely on, and it was their defense. The entire season, they were rated number 1 in the league for, I think, 14 or 15 weeks, ended up number 2 to Seattle, number 1 in the run by a wide margin.
One of the best teams since the merger against the run.
Historically great. Genuinely terrific ball player. What Dominican probably had his best season ever. I think Cliff Averill may still be on it. I'm not sure. But it's just really good, well for the ball club.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think that's what this team is missing right now. It's not that you have to have a historically good defense, but you have to have something that keeps you in the game. And right now, they just don't appear to have anything to lean on.
No, and when you get one sack in the first game and no turnovers, then one sack in the second game and no turnovers. Look, you in this day and age, the way they move the ball in the National Football League, you've got to be able to throw a wrench in the spokes and just go haywire once in a while. And they really don't do that. I don't think they see a guy who can really threatens them in a pass rush is going to get to the quarterback and knock him down. And that's how you get turnovers, Dan. I think you hit the quarterback, you get
no question.
You get late throws, you get early throws, you get tip balls, you get the quarterback gets hit in the back and invariably he's going to fumble. You just don't get that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things that they're going to find hard to explain is that this has been an ongoing problem. This isn't something that's new, and they haven't solved it. And that's a significant problem because I think that's, along with an ability to stop the run, I mean, I guess we're just indicting the entire defense now because you can't stop the pass and you can't stop the run. That was the case last year when they were at the bottom of the league in some of those statistical categories or near the bottom, certainly. And they just didn't address it, Mike. They haven't addressed enough defensively to make the case that this team is a better team. And that's, I think, where folks look at it and they say, you know what are you doing if you're not addressing those problems?
I think they probably were hurt a little bit by some injuries, more defensively than offensively, I think. I mean, having their top two cornerbacks, I think you could say Desmond Trufant and Justin Coleman are their top cornerbacks. I consider the slot cornerback a cornerback. I think that hurt him a little bit. They were inexperienced there. Jeff Okudah didn't show up too great in his rookie debut. Amani Oruwariye, I think, is going to be a good player. I didn't think he had his best game. And they had issues at safety yesterday. I mean, just wide open gaps, and they had a couple of penalties there that you look at and go, what are you doing, man?
And I think that becomes problematic when you look at that end of the first half sequence, Mike, was horrifying. Odeyebushi gets the penalty to stop the clock. You would have given Aaron Rodgers the ball back. You're leading 14-10. You'd have given it back to him with 20-some seconds left. Instead, with that penalty, you end up giving it back to him with a minute left. Matthew, you're going to hear it coming up on the show. Never should have taken that sack back there. I think that might be a byproduct of him feeling like the world's on his shoulders and he's trying to do too much. But you got to get rid of that football. And then Will Harris with 2 consecutive 15-yard personal fouls. So you have a clock-stopping penalty that was preceded by a bad sack that is then followed up subsequently by 2 15-yard penalties. You can't do that against Aaron Rodgers and survive. Now, it's still a close game at that point, and then it got out of hand. But every moment matters, and you can't have those momentum swinging times that you just kind of give it over to the other side.
And here's a 14-point swing, Dan, in 26 seconds of clock time. They score the touchdown at the end of the half. I think 12 seconds to go or 14. Come out for the second half, and it's either scored with 12 seconds or whichever one was the other one. And Aaron Jones goes 75 yards for the touchdown. And the way they came out for the first play of the second half, like we talk about halftime adjustments, and I'm sure we overdo that, but they must have seen something. Hey, look, we've got something good here. If we get the look we want, we're gone. And they did, and they did.
And it did. All right, we're going to take a break, come right back. When we do, you're going to hear from Lions head coach Matt Patricia. Want to remind you, this chat with Michael Harris brought to you by Comerica Bank. Experience full-service banking. Comerica Bank. Learn more at ComericaBank.com. Take a break, come right back. You'll hear from the head coach as he breaks this one down, and we look ahead to how they can get this thing together and get ready for a trip to Arizona against a 2-0 Cardinal team. That's coming up on this edition of Lions Review.
to more Lions Review. Presented by MGM Grand Detroit. Believe in your game. Here's Dan Miller.
There's Rodgers with it. Back, sets, throws, end zone, caught, touchdown. Robert Tonyan with the score. And Green Bay marches right down the field and takes the lead. And the Lions, for the most part, have themselves to thank for that drive.
Yes.
A holding penalty against Ode Abushi stopped the clock with a minute to go. 2 penalties against Will Harris accounted for 30 yards for Green Bay.
Yeah, it was a rough. And here's the thing, as you'll hear about from the head coach coming up momentarily, they did so well before halftime against the Bears. And that's something that Matt Patricia really stresses, is that period going into the break where you can gain momentum. And they didn't just lose momentum. The problem is they gave it away.
They gave it away. And then that period, I agree with that. And that was so important, I thought, in the game the previous week against the Bears. It didn't turn out that way. But I think that really sort of ignited that entire about 25-minute stretch for the Lions in game one, where they score a touchdown on the last drive of the first half, come out, score another touchdown, and then a field goal. That's 3 straight possessions, Dan. They get 17 points. And I thought, okay, it's over. Well, it wasn't.
Well, that's what good teams do, but good teams also find a way to close, and that is what's missing right now with the Lions. But let's get the head coach's take on this one. This interview with Matt Patricia brought to you by MGM Grand Detroit. Believe in your game. I asked him just about this team. It hasn't all been bad. There have been some very good moments, and I asked him, how do you take that, find some consistency, and move forward, because that's going to be the key to winning?
Well, I mean, I think you're exactly right. There's some good plays in there and things that we got to build on, and then when the plays that aren't so good come up, we got to move on and get to the next play and not let one bad play lead to another, and try to, just rebound in a positive direction. So I think, you said it, consistency is the biggest thing. And, that's got to start during the course of the week. We got to be consistent with our preparation and everything that we do. So we get in the game, it carries over into that setting.
When times are tough, the questions get tough. I've heard a number of players get questions about, do they believe in what's being done? Do they believe in the system? Do they believe in what's going on in the locker room? To a man, they have all said yes. As a head coach, what are you seeing from the guys out there in terms of effort and in terms of their commitment to what you want to do?
Well, again, like I've said, even going back to the spring, this is a good group of guys that they work hard. They want to win. They're trying to do the right thing. I think, for us, it's just about how do we do it better? How do we do it better as coaches? How do we do it better as players? How do we make it consistent? And, just keep trying to make sure that we improve. We have to improve every week, and, we have to stay diligent in what we're trying to do.
Really strong start by the offense on those first 2 drives. You go out, you score touchdowns, you end up with a 14-3 lead. You're all good. What was some of the keys that you saw to that start by that unit?
Well, I certainly think they did a good job of keeping balance early in the game, between the run and the pass, and being able to set up, the different plays that complemented those. The first drive, we were actually able to keep it out of 3rd down the entire way down there, 1st and 2nd down before we scored. And on the second drive, just converting those 3rd down situations, that was a big part of it. As the game went on, some of those things fell off, and, that's where our, deficiencies came as far as that's concerned. But in those first 2 drives, you really saw the consistency of what we were trying to do in the balance of the offense.
When you look back to that Chicago game, end of the first half, you were able to grab momentum. Yesterday was a very different story. A number of mistakes really came together in terms of penalties, decisions that allowed them to score that touchdown and take the lead. That's a good team. And I know that you don't need to give them any help to get done what they want to get done. And I know that was probably a period that you could put up as coaching points and say, guys, we can't do this. That's a tough way to win in the NFL.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously the week before was, really good before the half and after the half, and that's what we want to do. And we know that playing Green Bay and how explosive and dynamic they are, that would be a big challenge for us. They, really did a very similar thing to Minnesota the week before, and they were able to capitalize on the mistakes and score before the half. So we knew that going in, and obviously didn't execute very well, and had some critical penalties that really hurt us in that situation. And those are things you can't do against, a great team like Green Bay. You just can't do it. We gotta play smarter in those situations. And, all said and done, even after all that, in the start of the second half, it's still a 10-point ball game. And we just got to battle back, and we got to stay consistent. There's a lot of football left, and we got to understand that, we got to grind out the rest of the game. We can't get in a situation where, we're reaching too early.
You were down your two top corners in this game. You had some guys out there who haven't played a lot of football at this level. How did they do, and how did you feel that affected what you were able to do defensively?
Well, I mean, I think everybody, all three phases need to do a better job, and certainly defense, we need to do a lot better job overall with the game and the game plan and some of the execution that we saw on the field. So I don't think anybody's excused from that, and that's both in the run and the pass game. And those guys had some plays out there that they could have made, and obviously we got to coach some things better to make sure that they're in better position. So we just again. First game out there for Jeff, and obviously Amani, with some of the limited snaps that he's had, we just got to keep working to improve those guys. There's some good plays out there, but the bad ones are the ones we got to eliminate.
I talked to Duron about this yesterday, Duron Harmon, and one of the things he said was, when you look at the tape, this isn't about personnel. This isn't about physical. This is about doing your job, and these are correctable errors. Is that what you're seeing when you look at this?
Yeah, I totally think he's got it, exactly right. I think there's things on tape and certainly during the game where, everyone's got to settle down and just do their job, and do their job well. And Duron certainly knows that, and he knows what that looks like. And that's what we got to focus on. We got to make sure that we're consistent, just going out there doing what we're supposed to do.
Final thing, you got a punter who was in his second game and continues to do some terrific things out there. I think you saw the value late in the half when you're punting from deep in your own territory, 57-yard punt, no return. They ended up scoring off the drive, but it's that ability to flip the field that can make a player like that a weapon.
Yeah, no doubt. I thought that he punted the ball very well, and certainly there were some different conditions out there, but, Jack's just been trying to improve every week, and certainly in those situations, he can really help us try to put us in a favorable field position game.
All right, there he is, Lions head coach Matt Patricia, talking about the loss yesterday to the Packers, getting set for the Arizona Cardinals coming up, and Mike, it's that rallying cry. How about that punter? That's what we got going.
Fourth down. You
know what? On any other day, that 57-yard boot at the end of the half or towards the end of the half, that's exactly what you want, man. 57 yards, no return. You I think they punted from like the +10 maybe, or the minus 10. And they got it out to like the 37-yard line, whatever it was. But it was terrific. And unfortunately, Green Bay scored. But I love guys like that can flip the field and change the momentum in a game.
Dan, one thing I thought yesterday with the injuries, I thought they got by fairly well on the offensive line. I didn't think there was anything glaring.
Agree.
They didn't run for a big number. I think it was 89 yards, but they averaged 4.2, 4.3 yards per attempt. And I thought that was good enough. I really do think, though, that a guy that they missed was Joe Dahl at left guard. I really believe this, that he was part of that Bob Quinn's first draft class when he drafted the 3 offensive linemen, Taylor Decker in the first round, Graham Glasgow in the third, Joe Dahl in the fifth. And he was really an offensive tackle more than a guard in college, played that stand-up where they threw the ball 60 times, ran it twice or 3 times, whatever it was, and converted him to guard. And he really has developed himself into a very, very good football player. Now, he's got to be able to stay healthy, but I really think that was probably a loss, but I think they overcame it pretty well.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, too, where the scoreboard can kind of take you out of that a little bit.
Right,
the scoreboard
absolutely.
kind of takes you out of your ability to run the game and have balance. And Matthew talked about that, where, the offensive line, to your point, did a nice job of protecting him. And late in the game, when guys can kind of just pin their ears back, it's a different story.
No, absolutely. And, I think, once again, the first 2 games, I thought he'd be sharper by now. I really did. But the interception late in the game, it's not Matthew Stafford. That's not the guy I've been watching for 12 years. Don't know where that throw came from.
Yeah, and I think he'd be the first to tell you that. But I think also that I think sometimes when you're in a situation like this, there is a feeling that if you don't get it done, you're going to get the ball back down 2 scores.
Oh, yeah.
And that becomes a problem.
Absolutely. Frustration sets in,
And this is just us speculating.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. I don't speak for him, but look, I'm a big fan of Stafford. I think he's a tremendous player and an even better person, but if there was a final nail in the coffin, that was it, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to see that guy win. I know fans around here I just, I feel like there's been a lack of putting the appropriate pieces around him for much of his career, from a running game to a defense, save for 1 year. It's been tough. It's been tough to win, and they haven't won. And that's just where we are. Well, speaking of Matthew Stafford, he'll be on when we come back. You're going to hear from him. I had a chance to talk to him a little bit earlier today. That conversation is coming up. We will talk about the Cardinals. It's going to be a tough game. Those Cardinals are 2-0. They're on kind of the other side of the rebuild. So that's coming up in just a bit. Stick with us. Glad you're with us. This is Lions Review after week number 2.
Fox News, I'm Rich Dennison. President Trump says by Saturday he'll announce his pick for a nominee to fill the Supreme Court seat left vacant after the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has faced criticism for blocking former President Obama's election year high court pick.
8 times in our nation's history, new vacancies have arisen and presidents have made nominations, all during the election year.
Democrats oppose any action on a Supreme Court nominee until after the election. 7-Eleven announcing plans to hire 20,000 people for its 9,000 U.S. stores.
The new hires will help it to handle its surge in mobile orders through its 7 Now delivery app. CEO Joe DePinto says 7-Eleven has been offering delivery of essentials, milk, bread, and meals, and beer and wine in participating markets.
Fox's Jenny Casola. America is listening to Fox News.
The accident working southbound I-75 at John R. has indeed been cleared, and you'll find a delay thinning out in the area. But there's still an accident blocking the right lane on northbound I-75 at John R. Delays are still backed up past 8 Mile, costing you at least about 20 minutes to your travel to get on through. You're going to find road construction working, which may cause a delay on 8 Mile in both directions between Gratiot and Van Dyke. Please use caution there. I'm Pete Spyback, WJR, traffic and weather first.
Summer says goodbye on Tuesday, but temperatures continue to increase as we head into the upcoming weekend. Tonight going to be the coldest of the forecast going forward. 40s everywhere as we wake up on Tuesday morning. But with dry air and plenty of sunshine, we're going to 75 in the afternoon. You may notice some hazier skies with some wildfire smoke kind of drifting overhead. But otherwise, still bright 78 on Wednesday with partly cloudy skies. We'll stay in the upper 70s through Friday and hit 80 with a chance of rain Saturday. I'm Local 4 meteorologist Ben Baylor.
back to more Lions Review. Presented by MGM Grand Detroit. Believe in your game. Here's Dan Miller.
Stafford to throw. It is picked off, and that's going to be a touchdown. Pick 6 thrown right to the Packers that time. That is Chandon Sullivan who picked it off. Pass into the left flat. Sullivan was right there waiting for it. He even fell and got up and rolled into the end zone.
I mean, Matthew, I don't even see how he could see the receiver. He had somebody right in his face right as soon as he turned around. Oh, man, this is going from bad to worse.
I think we're already at worse.
There was one point yesterday, Mike Roloma said they keep shooting themselves in the foot, and I said, there's no foot left.
Yeah, right.
You're up to the ankle now. But
what comes after worse?
The end of the fourth quarter.
Dan, we do a video with Chris Spielman once a week called 3 and Out, and we were talking about the Lions. He says he's been to some other games, of course, that he covers. He said there are a lot of teams right now, whether it's the pandemic, or they just don't seem to be into the game. There's something missing there. Now that's not everybody. Don't get me wrong. He said there are a couple of teams out there that he's seen that there's something missing. Don't know exactly what it is.
But would you have said that when they were up 23-6 against the Bears?
Of course not. Yeah, it's a quarter by quarter, game by game, play by play proposition. But that's just that was Chris's observation, not just of the Detroit Lions, but of he's done 2 games for Fox. He's seen 4 teams. So,
well, you know what? We'll get Matthew Stafford in just a second. Look, Mike, you're in on all these media sessions and stuff like that. These questions are getting a lot harder for Matt Patricia. That kind of starts when you get a mandate put on you last December from ownership that you got to win. And then when you're not winning to start the season, people are asking questions. So the question becomes, his answer is going to be just keep grinding, keep working. But what do? You really don't have an option. That's all you can do. But how do you salvage this thing? Is it just about getting a win and trying to exhale at that point and then trying to put another win on top of that and keeping this focus very small?
Well, I think if you look back to the opener, it tells you why the Chicago game was so big, because it's the start of the season, and the National Football League, after all of this, Dan, got started on time. And it really was. It was a big deal in terms of sports. It's not the most important thing in our world. I get that. But it was a big deal. The league is started, and they've got a game won. And it's a new year, and they're off and going, and now there's no losing streak. Yeah. And it just plays into everything. It's not just the loss itself, but it's what it represents in the eyes of fans, of the skeptics, of the doubters, of the believers, the whole group. And that's why winning is so important for everybody. They had a chance to get things going the right way right from the beginning and looked good, had the game absolutely wrapped up, and then had it won again, except for a dropped pass.
Yeah. And that's, probably you win that game. I don't think people necessarily expected them to go to Green Bay and win in week 2. Green Bay won 13 games in a division title and got to the NFC Championship game last year. I don't think people expected them to go there and win, but you got to protect home field. And then if you can find a way to get, 6 wins at home, 4 wins on the road, that's 10. That gets you in the playoffs. But winning on the road is tough. A little different now without a crowd there. But now as you lose, you continue to put pressure on yourself as you go on to take it on a team like Arizona this week, where your margin for error has shrunk now. I mean, we know what 0-2 historically means in this league. 0-3 is, almost, if not impossible.
And there are certain things that play into it, too, and one of them is the bye week. It comes up after the 4th week, and the Detroit Lions have a very tough first 4 games. And, look, I heard this before the start of the season. You do talk radio for guys who call, and they all said the same thing. What happens if they start 0-4? And my question then is, well, what if they go 4-0? Well, we never think that's going to happen. Yeah. Well, now they've got this natural gap. They've got an extra week to think things over, and people wonder, what is management, what is ownership going to do?
Well, let's get to our conversation with Matthew Stafford, which is brought to you by Henry Ford Health System, the official healthcare provider of the Detroit Lions. Had a chance to talk with him this afternoon. First question was about that early stage of the game, and we covered all of it, but the early stage of the game where things were going well for Detroit and what he saw on tape.
A little bit of everything. I think we did a nice job running the football early on in the game. Made some plays in the passing game, stayed on the field, which was great. kept the ball out of number 12's hands and their offense. So we had 2 nice drives to score. We just got to continue to do that, obviously, more often than we did.
Yeah, what did you think changed after that? Because there were 6 drives after that where you came up empty. There was a missed field goal in there, but it seemed like, was it adjustments on their end or lack of execution on yours? A little bit of both.
I think it was just us, I mean, obviously our guys up front, I thought played really well, handled them, in the run game and in the pass game, until things kind of got out of hand late in the game. But, I just think we just didn't execute, well enough. We're playing against a tough team, a team that's got a really good offense. So we're going to need to, go out there and control the game from our standpoint. And, we just weren't able to do it often enough.
You said after the game that there were some plays you'd like to have back. I'm sure every player looks at the tape and there's something they want back. Was the sack late in the half one that you would like to have back? And if so, is that maybe an example of pressing a little bit and just trying to do too much?
I for sure want that one back. I was trying to find Deandre to check it down. I couldn't find him. He was kind of just sitting on the other side of the line. And that's one of those things where it's tough. And then once I kind of bounce back to the left, I should have just launched it into the stands, make sure that they don't get their hands on me there and they don't get us backed up. So, yeah, that's definitely one I want back. One that kind of, gave them a little bit of momentum and look at the end of the game, it was kind of a point where we weren't able to come back and regain that momentum.
Yeah, because if you look at big picture there, it kind of set off a series of events where you had the penalty that stopped the clock. They get the ball, a couple of defensive penalties. All of a sudden, they're going in up by 3, and they feel like they've got some momentum at that point. And I would imagine that's got to be one of the most frustrating things. That's a good enough team that you don't have to help them, and it just makes your life more difficult when those mistakes are out there. And it's not just you. It's not just the defense. It's the team that has to look at that.
Yeah, definitely. That being said, it's a 3-point game at halftime, and we got to go out there and fight tooth and nail to make sure that every opportunity we get after that, we got to make it count. And obviously we didn't do that. We didn't play well enough in really any phase of the game to win that game. But we can't let a little mistake here or there or from anybody on any phase derail us. Football's an imperfect game. We're never going to go play a game and have a perfect game. So there's going to be times where I take a bad sack or I throw a pick six or, we do something that isn't conducive to winning. Well, we got to wipe that clean and go play because there's still a lot of football to be played. And, I think we just got to do a little bit better job of that Sunday.
So final thing, Matthew, how do you, and if you had the answer to this question, you probably would have already done it, but how do you find that consistency? You know what you're capable of because we've seen it. It's a matter of finding a way to get a lot of that into a 60-minute game. Where's the consistency come from?
I think it just comes from doing it in practice, making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can, to prepare for the game. I know the guys in this locker room are working their tail off, and our coaches are too, but we got to go out there and do it on Sunday. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We can talk about it all we want, but we got to go do it, and we know that. This is a grown man's league and a production league. You got to go out there, you got to make plays, you got to win, and it's on us to go do it.
All right, there he is, Matthew Stafford. He and his teammates trying to get this thing turned around. And Mike, when you're not winning, the locker room can be a difficult place. And not that you're sniping at each other or anything like that, but, everybody's trying to pull this thing together, and it's difficult. And these players are getting peppered with questions about, do they believe in what they're doing? Do they believe in their coach? Do they believe in the system? Which are all fair questions. And, they're saying the right things, but losing is not fun, man. It just makes going to work more and more difficult.
And especially in pro football, because just there's so many factors that make it different than other sports. The hours of practice to play one game. No other sport does that, not at all.
And you only get 16 of them.
You only get 16 of them. Excuse me, 57-player rosters and 16 guys on the practice squad. You're talking about 73 players in the locker room every day, plus injured reserve. It's a colony that moves from place to place to place 16 times a year. That's the way it is, and you can wear on each other, and you're getting not only that, you're getting some contact even in practice. It's a very, very tough game. It really is.
Do you think getting out of here and going far, far away, and I don't know if they're traveling on Friday or what they're doing this week or whatever, you think there's sometimes an advantage to that, just getting out of town?
Well, I think it's more so when there are fans in the stands and you're getting booed, and I think can we go play somewhere else?
It's us against them.
It's us against them. But I think sometimes a road trip is good. I really do. And I think that if there is a time when it's a good thing, then I think it's this week and going to Arizona, where they've really played pretty well there the last few times they've been. They haven't won them all, but they've all been what I call white knuckle flights right down to the end. They had a tie in the opener last year, and they had a win late in the season before. So there's certainly no mystique about going to Arizona. And Dan, just to back up a little bit, there was no mystique going to Green Bay either. Before last Sunday, the Lions were 7-6 in the last 13 games against Green Bay and 3-2 at Lambeau. So it's not like the old days where they just kind of quaked going to Lambeau. They're playing just as well there as Green Bay was.
They didn't come out of the tunnel like they had any problems playing at Lambeau Field. They came out of the tunnel like they were ready to go, but they just had a tough time sustaining it. All right, hang in there, Mike. We'll come right back. I want to talk a little bit about Arizona and the job that they've done in putting this team together. We'll do that on the other side. Stick with us and stick with this edition of Lions Review. And I got your play of the week coming too. Stick around.
to more Lions Review. Presented by MGM Grand Detroit. Believe in your game. Here's Dan Miller.
Rodgers hands to Jones. Jones finds a big hole up the middle, and he may go 50, 40, 30, 20, 10-5, end zone, touchdown, 75 yards. Aaron Jones, first play, second half. Wow. The last 1 minute and 12 seconds of this game have been a nightmare for the Lions.
And there you were yesterday in Green Bay. Lions fall to the Packers 42-21. Dan Miller, Mike O'Hara with you. Closing moments here of Lions Review. Call to the game sponsored by Ring Central, official partner of the Detroit Lions. Ring Central, message, video, phone together. Michael, what was the call of the game?
You just had it right there. That was
it, huh?
75-yard touchdown run by Aaron Jones. And, we talked about this before. It looked like at halftime they had something set up. Now, I don't know that, but it certainly looked the way they sprung it, and they really caught him. Chris Spielman and I just coincidentally, we featured that play on 3 and Out on DetroitLions.com, and Chris could see that two guys were in the same lane, and you can see number 25, Will Harris, the safety, make a sweeping attack on the ball carrier, but gets behind him sort of and never really gets the right angle. And then that was sort of just opened up the last 50 yards or so for him to get to the end zone. So it was a great call and not very well defensed by the Detroit Lions.
All right, let's talk about these Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray is obviously the headliner. That's the guy that everybody's talking about. He's off to a great start, looked awful good in yesterday's game. Deandre Hopkins, a huge pickup during the offseason for them, one of the best receivers in the NFL. Traded for Kenyon Drake and brought him in last year. He's a heck of a football player as a running back. Kind of an off-the-charts hire, and Cliff Kingsbury had been fired in college at Texas Tech. They traded for Chandler Jones a couple years ago. He's provided them with a big pass rush. So you can kind of see how they've constructed this team. And then you got Peterson and Fitzgerald who've been there for a while. They're down the road a little bit on their rebuild, and they feel like they can contend this year.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. Really, the rebuild started with the draft last year with Kyle Murray. I'm sorry, not Kerryon. And some of the moves they made, getting Kenyon Drake in a trade. He rushed for 643 yards in 8 games last year. He's got 145, second on the team to Kyler Murray, who's almost at the 200-yard mark. He's got three rushing touchdowns. And who's on that team right now is Devon Canard, starting linebacker. And I went on their website just to pick some of the interviews up for the game yesterday, and Devon Canard made the comment. He said, "Look, I played against Kyler Murray as a rookie last year. I'd much rather be his teammate and watch him from the sideline. He is just amazing now." And I think he's just getting going too. I really do. The passing game has been okay. He's got 2 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. That's just sort of break even, but there's more to come from him. I think there are some people who think he's not just a top 5 quarterback, but a top 5 player in this league, and we'll see.
He's so fast and so difficult to find back there because he's not a big guy. But, boy, if you give him a split second, he's out of there quick.
Well, we saw him last year. They were down 18 points with 13 minutes to go in the game, and they tie it, go into overtime. I mean, and you talk about a crushing tie. That was a crushing tie.
This from a guy who advocates ties from time to time.
Yes, I do. But it's got to be strategic, okay? Anytime after week 1.
Oh, goodness gracious. Michael, good stuff. Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. You can read all Mike's stuff coming up on DetroitLions.com. You can be with us. Lions Radio coming up this week when the Lions take on the Cardinals in Arizona. That's going to do it for this edition of Lions Review. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night, everybody.